Hey friends, tonight we're making space for those who are still waiting. The kind of waiting that stretches longer than expected, maybe longer than seems fair. This prayer is for the ones who have whispered the same plea again and again, and still, the answer hasn't come. For the tired hearts that feel like maybe they've been overlooked. For the ones holding space for a miracle while wondering if they're the only ones still standing in the hallway of hope. The sky outside may be still, but inside, your soul feels anything but settled. And maybe tonight there's a question pressing in quietly: how much longer? You probably can't fix this tonight, and that's okay. You weren't meant to carry it all alone. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know who I'm praying with. Comment your name and how you're feeling tonight, even if it's just one word. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's prayer together. You've held this request for a long time now. Maybe it started with fire fervent, faith-filled, bold. You were sure the answer would come, and soon. But days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and somewhere along the way, the spark dimmed. You still whisper the prayer, but now, it feels quieter. Not because your heart doesn't care, but because it's tired. You find yourself wondering, did I miss something? Is God waiting on me? Or, is this just not meant to be? The ache of unanswered prayers is real. It settles in your bones like a slow evening chill. It stings. Not just because you're waiting, but because you've waited with hope. And hope hurts when it stretches too long. But tonight, let's start here. You haven't done anything wrong. This delay is not punishment. It's not silence out of neglect. It's not rejection disguised as stillness. It's just waiting. And waiting is hard, even on the strongest souls. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. Yes, God knows that. He spoke it. So when your heart feels heavy in this pause, He understands. And He isn't rushing you out of it. He's sitting with you in it. He sees how you keep showing up, how you keep whispering prayers, even when your voice shakes, how you celebrate others while wondering, quietly, if your turn will come. He sees. And He cares. So tonight, bring Him your waiting, not dressed up or full of resolution, just as it is. Frayed, tender, open. Let yourself be seen in this place you've grown tired of explaining. Let yourself cry if you need to. Let the ache speak for you. And then let this truth hold you gently. You don't need an answer tonight to be held by the answer giver. So you breathe. You settle. You whisper, God, I don't know what you're doing, but I don't want to walk through this alone. And He answers not always with explanation, but with nearness, with presence, with the kind of peace that doesn't solve but stays. That's where we begin. When hope feels thin, you begin to wonder if maybe you're asking too much, not in words but in spirit. You used to pray bold, didn't you? There was a time when your heart leaned forward, your voice lifted high. You believed not just that God could, but that He would. And now it's harder to say it out loud. Hope has grown quiet, small, thin like worn pages in a book too often open to the same chapter. You whisper, God, I don't want to lose faith. And He whispers back, even mustard seed faith moves mountains. You don't need a roaring confidence to be seen. You don't need a perfect attitude or unshakable optimism. You just need what you already have, a heart still turned toward Him. Even when it's weary, that's hope. Even when it flickers. Even when it fades and returns in waves. Even when it shows up as nothing more than a whisper of maybe. A bruised reed He will not break, and a smouldering wick He will not snuff out. God holds fragile hope gently. He doesn't criticize your hesitation. He doesn't shame your tired faith. He honors it because He knows the cost. He sees how you press through disappointment. How you still speak blessings over others, even when your own breakthrough feels far off. How you haven't let go, even if your grip has loosened. Friend, it's okay to admit you're tired of believing. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest. And God does beautiful things with honesty. So tonight, let yourself exhale. You don't have to fan your hope into flames again. You just have to let it be what it is. Small, steady, still here. And even if your heart whispers nothing more than, God, I still want to trust you, He hears that as worship. You don't need to feel strong to stay connected. You don't need to stir up fake peace to be held in real love. So rest now. Let your hope be quiet if it needs to be. Let it stretch out beside you, like a fragile friend who just wants to be close. And let this be enough for tonight. You're not losing hope. You're learning how to hold it differently. With softness, with patience, with grace. So you breathe. And you let the God who sees your flicker tend the flame. Is God still listening? That question doesn't always shout, sometimes it just lingers. Quiet. Unspoken. Unsettled. Like background static behind your vast, you've waited. Even in the long hush that followed, the silence started to feel like absence. You whisper, God, are you still there? And that's not faithlessness. That's not rebellion. That's what it means to be human and heart deep in the unknown. Even David, the one after God's own heart, cried out, why have you hidden your face from me? Because this waiting season has a sound. Quiet. And when you're used to answers, to confirmations, to moments of clarity, the quiet can feel cruel. But friend, it isn't. Silence isn't the same as distance. God hasn't stepped back. He hasn't stopped caring. And he most certainly hasn't stopped listening. He just speaks in different tones sometimes. A verse that surfaces in your spirit out of nowhere. A song that feels like it knows your thoughts. A kind word from someone who doesn't know how much you needed it. A moment of stillness where your breath slows and you feel, not fixed, but not forgotten. That's him. Still here. Still listening. Still holding every whispered prayer, every tear-soaked word, every shaky amen, before a word is on your tongue. I know it completely. He's not only listening, he's understanding. And not in a distant, lofty, theological way, but in the close, kneeling, heart wrapped in yours kind of way. So tonight, let yourself be honest about the silence. Let yourself say, God, I miss feeling close to you. And then listen not with ears, but with trust. Trust that presence can be quiet. Trust that nearness can feel like a whisper. Trust that God is not far even if his voice feels faint. You don't have to feel something to be held. You don't have to hear thunder to believe he's near. Just rest. Not in the answer, but in the one who listens long, waits with you, and speaks in ways deeper than sound. So you breathe, and let his silence hold you, not hurt you. Because even in the quiet, God is still listening. The sacredness of small faith. There's a kind of faith people often celebrate loud, brave, unshakable. The kind that moves with confidence, declares boldly, and keeps marching. But that's not the only kind of faith God honors. Sometimes faith is quieter. It shows up with trembling hands and tired eyes. It doesn't always have the right words or even full belief. It just whispers, God, I'm still here. And that matters more than you know. You whisper tonight, this doesn't feel like enough. But heaven sees it differently. Because God isn't measuring the size of your faith. He's holding the heart behind it. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, that's all he asks. Not because he wants you to feel small, but because he knows even your smallest belief still connects you to Khan. You don't need big faith to move God's heart. You just need honest faith. The kind that still reaches, even when it's unsure. The kind that still hopes, even after disappointment. The kind that still breathes out his name when everything feels quiet. Small faith is still sacred. It's the kind that shows up at the end of long days. It's the kind that rests in the middle of uncertainty. It's the kind that says, God, I don't see it yet, but I'm not walking away. You don't need to be more spiritual than you are. You don't have to have it all together tonight. You can pray with doubts in your heart and tired in your bones, and still be fully seen, fully known, fully loved. So let yourself off the hook. Let your soul stop performing. Let your faith be soft. Let it be fragile. Let it be what it is, and trust that it's enough for God. You are not being graded tonight. You are being held. So you exhale. You let the tightness ease from your chest, and you rest in this gentle truth. Faith doesn't have to be loud to be real. God is near, even to the smallest yes you can muster. Let that be your lullaby tonight. You're not failing. You're still believing, even if it's only by a thread. And in God's hands, even the smallest thread holds. Your tears are seen. Not the ones you've shared with others. Not the ones you've wrapped in brave words or hidden behind polite smiles. But the quiet ones. The ones that came in the bathroom mirror. The ones you wiped away before anyone noticed. The ones that didn't make a sound but said everything. You whisper, God, no one really knows how much this hurts. And he answers, I do. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. Not one of them has fallen unnoticed. Not one of them was wasted. Every drop carries weight in the heart of God. He doesn't roll his eyes at your emotions. He doesn't grow impatient with your ache. He treasures your honesty because tears are truth. Tears are prayers too deep for words. Tears are trust poured out in liquid form. They mean you still care. They mean you still hope. They mean you're still alive, still tender, still reaching for something more. Tonight, let the tears fall if they need to. Don't rush to explain them. Don't feel the need to tidy them up with theology or answers. Let them speak. Let them breathe. Let them flow without shame. You don't have to hold them back for God's sake. He welcomes them. He meets you in the middle of your cry and doesn't ask you to stop. He just stays. He just listens. He just comforts without condition. Maybe no one else saw the tears that fell while you were washing dishes, or when the voicemail came and your heart broke quietly, or when the silence in the room reminded you of what's still missing. But God saw them. And more than that, he felt them with you. He weeps with those who weep, not out of pity, but out of love. So tonight you can let go. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let your emotions have a voice. And trust that you don't need to be strong here. You just need to be. Because here in the quiet of night, with your tear-stained pillow and unspoken ache, you are more seen, more held, and more loved than you know. So you breathe. And you let God hold what your heart can't carry alone. He sees. He knows. He stays. When others move forward without you, it's a quiet kind of pain, isn't it? To celebrate others while your heart sighs inside. To clap and smile and say, I'm so happy for you, even when something aches underneath. Not because you're jealous, but because you're still waiting, still hoping, still here while others walk through the doors you've been standing in front of for years. You whisper, God, am I falling behind? And he says, you're on a different road, not a lesser one. There's no shame in being the one still waiting. No shame in standing still when others sprint. No shame in not having your moment yet. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. Your season hasn't been skipped. It's just still unfolding. But that doesn't mean it's easy to watch others bloom while you're still in the soil. So tonight, let's make room for that feeling. The one that says, I'm genuinely happy for them, but it still hurts. God isn't disappointed in you for feeling both things. He's not shocked that your soul holds a tension of celebration and sorrow in the same breath. That tension is human and holy, and he honors it. You don't need to rush past it. You don't need to force positivity where grief is growing. You can feel the ache of waiting and still be a loving friend. You can hold someone else's joy and tend to your own sadness. You're not behind. You're not being punished. You're being prepared, in ways you can't see yet, in timings that won't make sense until they're in your rearview mirror. So rest tonight, not in your progress, but in your place. Let go of the timelines that don't belong to you. Let go of the pressure to keep up. Let go of the fear that your moment won't come, because the one who writes your story has not forgotten the page you're on. He sees the gap between your longing and your reality, and he's still working even if no one else sees it yet. So you breathe. You unclench your hands. You whisper, even if I'm still waiting, I trust you'll move when it's time. And that trust, that slow, quiet, steady kind, it's not small. It's sacred. The illusion of running out of time, it creeps in late at night, doesn't it? That anxious clock ticking louder in your chest than on your wall. That feeling that the window is closing. That you're falling behind some invisible timeline you were never supposed to carry. You whisper, what if it's too late? And God answers, I'm not bound by your deadlines. A day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like a day. Time bends differently in heaven, and grace has never been in a hurry. But we feel it, don't we? The pressure, the birthdays, the missed chances. The way everyone seems to be getting somewhere faster, louder, more visibly while you're still waiting, still hoping, still wondering if the dream will wither in your hands before it has a chance to bloom. But friend, you're not late. You're not behind. You're not disqualified because of how long it's taken. The God who authors your life is never rushed and never random. He sees the minutes and months you've held on. He knows the moments when you whispered, I thought I'd be farther by now. He's not impatient with you. He's not disappointed in your pace. He knows why it's taken this long. He knows what needed time to heal, what needed space to grow. And he also knows how to redeem time. He knows how to breathe on old dreams, how to open new doors in what looks like the last hour, how to turn too late into just in time. So tonight, exhale the rush. Release the lie that you're falling behind. Let go of the imaginary race where no one actually wins. You're not a deadline to God. You are a masterpiece unfolding slowly, surely, beautifully. And nothing is wasted. Not the days you felt unseen. Not the nights you cried from the weight of waiting. Not the birthdays or benchmarks or quiet anniversaries of still not yet. God is still working, still writing, still weaving timing and tenderness into your story. So you breathe again slower now. You whisper, I don't need to be fast, I just need to be faithful. And God smiles, because that's more than enough. God's delays aren't rejections. But oh, how easily we confuse the two. Because when silence stretches long, when doors stay closed, when prayers seem to echo back without reply, it's easy to assume the answer must be no, or worse, that God's heart has shifted. You whisper, maybe he doesn't want this for me. But friend, delay is not denial. The Lord is not slow in keeping his promise. As some understand slowness, his pace may feel different than yours. But it is never careless, never cruel, never random. Sometimes what feels like a delay is actually protection. Sometimes it's preparation. Sometimes it's a gentle redirection that only makes sense in hindsight. And sometimes it's simply mercy, because God sees what you can't. You've been faithful. You've been hopeful. You've kept knocking. But the door hasn't moved. So tonight, let's sit with the ache without assuming the worst. Let's hold the unanswered prayer like a seed, not a sentence, because seeds don't look like much at first. They disappear into the dirt. They lie still. They break open in silence, in secret long before they ever bloom. God is not withholding from you to hurt you. He is waiting to give in fullness, not fragments. He is shaping what your heart longs for in ways you wouldn't have thought to ask. You don't have to force it. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to push a door open just to prove your faith. Your worth is not tied to what opens or closes. It's tied to who holds the key. And he is good. So rest tonight in this truth. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it never will. Just because the answer is delayed doesn't mean it's denied. You can unclench your heart. You can release the pressure to interpret every silence as punishment. You can sleep not with every answer, but with peace. Because God is not ignoring you. He's aligning things you can't see yet. So you whisper, I'll trust your pace, even when it hurts. And he whispers back, I'm still working. I haven't forgotten you. Let that be enough to close your eyes. Tired of holding on. There's a certain kind of weariness that doesn't come from doing too much, but from holding something for too long. You know that feeling. When your hands ache, not from labor, but from grasping hope that hasn't turned into reality. From clinging to the same prayer, the same promise, the same longing, long after the strength to carry it with joy has faded. You whisper, God, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And you need to know, that doesn't make you faithless. That makes you human. Even Jesus in the garden prayed through trembling lips. If there's any other way, he knows the fatigue of enduring. He knows the ache of a soul stretched thin. He knows how heavy it is to wait with open hands that receive nothing yet still stay open. And he honors that. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. That invitation isn't for the strong. It's for the ones like you who keep holding on when everything in you wants to let go. So tonight, let yourself stop pretending. Let yourself be tired. You don't need to prove your endurance to God. You don't need to fake cheerfulness to deserve comfort. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to say, God, this hurts. You are allowed to place your hope into his hands not as an offering of strength, but of surrender. Because holding on doesn't mean clenching harder. Sometimes holding on means trusting enough to loosen your grip and let God hold it for a while. So you breathe. You exhale the strain. You whisper, I'm tired, but I still believe you're good. And that's enough. More than enough. Tonight, let your strength come from resting, not striving. Let your hope be carried, not just clung to. Let God be the keeper of what you can't keep holding by yourself. And if all you do tonight is lie here, letting him tend to your tired spirit, then that's victory. Because love doesn't leave you in your weakness. It holds you closer. Bitterness trying to grow roots. It often starts so quietly. A little hurt that doesn't get healed. A little prayer that doesn't get answered. A little comparison that creeps in unnoticed. And before you realize it, something sour begins to settle inside. Not loud. Not explosive, just heavy. A dull ache. A quiet resentment. You whisper, I didn't want to feel this way. But it's there. That tiny sting when someone else gets what you've been praying for. That little sigh when your efforts go unseen. That tired whisper of, what's the point? Bitterness doesn't always show up with anger. Sometimes it arrives disguised as numbness. As apathy. As a heart closing itself off not in rebellion, but in self-protection. But even here, God meets you. Even this feeling, this sharp, silent ache isn't too much for him. Create in me a clean heart. Oh God, not a perfect heart. A clean one. One that's open again. Soft again. Free again. So tonight, let's invite him in. Not with shame. Not with guilt. Just with honesty. God, this place in me is starting to harden. This part of me is starting to withdraw. And I don't want that to become who I am. You don't have to fix it in one night. You don't have to force joy where there's still soreness. You just have to be willing to let God touch that place. To name the bitterness before it becomes belief. To say, I'm hurt, and I don't want to stay hurt. And that is holy. It's not weakness, it's courage. Because it takes bravery to be soft when life gives you reasons to harden. So you breathe. You invite God into the places you've quietly closed off. You whisper, I don't want this bitterness to grow. Pull it up gently, Lord. And he does. Not with harshness. Not with shame, but with kindness. Because it's his kindness that leads to healing, not pressure. So tonight, rest knowing you've been brave. You've brought him the part of you that felt safest to hide. And he receives it with gentleness and grace. The hard things don't define you. The healing does. What if the answer never looks like you thought? That's a quiet question that sometimes knocks late at night. Not in panic, but in sorrow. A soft ache that wonders, what if the healing doesn't come the way I imagined? What if the breakthrough is quieter than I prayed for? What if the story ends differently than I hoped? You whisper, God. What if you never say yes the way I want? And he whispers back, will you still believe I'm good? It's not a question meant to test you. It's an invitation to trust deeper, to release your grip on the picture you painted, not because it was wrong, but because his canvas is larger. Now we see in part. Yes, you've only seen one angle, one path, one way for this to resolve. But what if the blessing is hidden in a form you didn't expect? What if peace looks like something simpler? What if healing comes not just to the outcome, but to your inner world? What if God is preparing joy that doesn't match the version you prayed for, but surpasses it in ways you won't understand until much later? Tonight, let your heart be honest about its grief. Grief for the version you imagined. Grief for the story that hasn't played out like you thought. God won't rebuke you for mourning that. He's not asking you to let go without compassion. He's simply offering his hand in the middle of your what-ifs. And he says, even if I don't answer how you hoped, I'll never stop being near. That's the promise. Not that you'll always get clarity, but that you'll always have company. So breathe tonight, not because it's all resolved, but because you're not alone in the not knowing. You whisper, even if I will trust you. And heaven leans close, not to demand more, but to remind you your story isn't over. Your heart is still in the safest hands. And whatever comes or doesn't come, you're still loved, still held, still being led toward good. When you're afraid to hope again, because hoping hurts, doesn't it? It stretches you open, makes your heart tender, leaves you vulnerable not to people, but to possibility. And when something hasn't come through yet, when the waiting has lasted longer than your joy could, you start to wonder if it's safer to just let go. You whisper, God, I don't know if I can handle another disappointment. And he answers, not with pressure, but with presence. I will restore the years the locusts have eaten. That's not just a promise of what's to come. It's a promise about the pain behind you, the ache he has never overlooked. God knows how deep your letting go would be. He knows how long you've tried to stay soft. And he knows how tempting it is to harden just enough that you can say, it's fine. I didn't need that anyway. But friend, you did. You still do. There's a reason that desire hasn't gone away. There is a reason it still stirs when you least expect it. You are not silly for still wanting it. You are not weak for still hoping. You are not wrong for still caring. God made your heart spacious, able to stretch and hope and break and still believe again. But he also understands why you're tired, why you hesitate, why hope feels like a risk too heavy for tonight. So let this be the prayer you borrow, God. I want to believe again, but I don't want to break again. He hears you. He's not asking you to go back to blind hope. He's inviting you into anchored hope, the kind that trusts not in the outcome, but in the one who holds the outcome. Tonight, you don't have to rise in hope. You just have to lie down in honesty. You just have to let God tend to the place inside you that still whispers, maybe. And even if it's just a flicker, even if it's barely warm, that hope still matters. So you breathe. You stop bracing for heartbreak. You stop rehearsing the worst. And you whisper, "Help me hope gently again." And heaven draws near not to demand, but to hold. Because God's not afraid of your hope. He's the one who gave it. And He knows how to guard it until it's time. When you feel invisible in your waiting, it's not always the silence that's hardest sometimes. It's the feeling of being unseen in it. You've been faithful. You've shown up. You've stayed kind. You've kept going. And yet no spotlight. No breakthrough. No obvious sign that heaven has noticed what you're carrying. You whisper, "Does anyone even see what I'm still holding together?" And God answers, "I do." Your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you, not in the loud ways of this world, but in the quiet currency of heaven. You are not forgotten. Not in your gentle patience. Not in your unseen prayers. Not in your choice to love when it's costly, or stay when it would have been easier to leave. God sees the moments no one claps for. He sees the late night surrender you never post about. The way you've stayed soft in a hard world. The way you've let hope live where logic says it shouldn't. And His heart is moved. You don't need a stage to be seen. You don't need a platform to matter. You don't need applause to be called faithful. Heaven's eyes have never left you. So tonight, let yourself rest in that truth. You are not invisible to the God who counts your sighs. You are not missed by the one who tracks every tear. You are not lost in the crowd of other needs you are known. Intimately, tenderly, exactly as you are. And He's not rushing you. He's not shaming you. He's just drawing close because that's what love does. So breathe again. Unclench the fear that you've been overlooked. Unwind the worry that you've somehow slipped through the cracks. You haven't. You're still in His hands. Still on His mind. Still woven into His plans. You whisper, "God, I don't need the world to see me. I just want to know you do." And He smiles. Because you're already seen fully and forever. The lie that you're doing something wrong. It creeps in quietly, doesn't it? When things stay still for too long. When the answer hasn't come. When someone says you just need more faith. Or maybe there is a lesson you're missing. And suddenly, you start wondering, is this my fault? Did I mess up somewhere? Is God holding back because of me? Friend, can we breathe through that together tonight? Because shame is not the voice of the shepherd. Jesus doesn't whisper accusation into weary hearts. He doesn't play guessing games with His love. You are not being punished by this silence. You are not being tested to prove your worth. You are not being overlooked because you missed some spiritual step. Sometimes hard seasons are just hard. Not because of sin. Not because of failure. But because we live in a world where waiting is real and wounds take time. And in that space between I asked and God answered lies a battlefield of lies. But truth still stands. There is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. None. Not even a whisper. Not even in the pauses that stretch too long. So tonight, release the burden of overanalyzing. Release the temptation to dissect every moment, every prayer, every perceived misstep. God is not waiting for perfection. He is not distant because of delay. He is not silent because you're somehow spiritually off. He is near because that's who He is. And His nearness isn't performance-based. It's promise-based. So you breathe. You let go of the guilt that was never yours to carry. You whisper, "God, if I'm missing something, show me gently." And He will with grace, never with guilt. But tonight, maybe there's nothing to fix. Maybe you're not doing anything wrong. Maybe you are just in the middle of the mystery, and that's still holy ground. So rest, not because you figured it out, but because you're allowed to stop striving. You are still loved, still chosen, still enough, even in the silence, even in the uncertainty, even in the waiting that makes no sense. Letting go of how it was supposed to be. You had a picture in your heart, a sense of how it would go, the timeline, the relationship, the breakthrough, the purpose. You did your best. You stayed faithful. You believed. But somewhere along the way, the story started to unravel from that picture. Not in big, dramatic ways, just enough to where the path now feels unfamiliar and unfair. You whisper, "God, this isn't how it was supposed to be." And He doesn't argue with that. He simply draws near. "I am making all things new, not all things how they were, not all things how you imagined, but new, beautiful in a different shape, redemptive in unexpected colors, still good, even if it's not what you thought." Tonight, let yourself grieve the version you lost. Let yourself cry for what could have been, for what you prayed for what you built your heart around. Not because you're ungrateful, but because you're human. God can handle the tears that honor what mattered to you. He's not offended by your sadness. He doesn't rebuke you for missing what didn't become. He just holds you. And in that holding, he begins something quiet, something healing, something new. So take the version in your hands, the dream, the plan, the story, and gently lay it down. You're not giving up. You're giving God permission to reshape what you've been gripping so tightly. You whisper, "It didn't turn out the way I hoped, but I still trust you with what's next." And that trust, that surrender, that soft exhale in the middle of disappointment, that's worship. And heaven receives it. So tonight, breathe. Not because everything's resolved, but because you don't have to carry the blueprint anymore. You can let go of how it was supposed to be, and let God surprise you with how it still can be beautiful. And now, we slow everything. Let your breathing ease into a softer rhythm. Let the quiet wrap around you like a gentle blanket. You've done enough tonight. You've felt deeply. You've told the truth of your soul. You've brought the ache, the wonder, the waiting, and you've been met by a God who never rushes you through it. So rest, dear one. Not because the answer has arrived, but because love has. You are not alone in your bed tonight. God is here, not distant, not disappointed. He's sitting with you in the waiting. He's whispering peace into your thoughts. He's collecting your tears, holding your hopes, and watching over your rest. Let your body release what it doesn't need to carry into tomorrow. Let your soul know it doesn't have to keep proving anything. You're loved right now, not when it all makes sense, not when it all works out. Right now, fully, gently, eternally. So let the silence be sacred. Let the stillness be safe. Let your heart remember, you are not forgotten. You are not falling behind. And you don't have to have the answers to be at peace. God is not in a rush with your life. And He never sleeps on your pain. So close your eyes, beloved. Let grace hold the pieces. Let mercy keep watch. And let your last breath tonight be a soft surrender. I trust you, even here, especially here. End of script. Sweet dreams.